said that when an NFL player appears in the cover of the popular sports video game, Madden, their career will soon be brought to ruin. Now, does this phenomenon exist within the golden child of EA Sports, NBA 2K as well? NBA 2K today, while still wildly popular, has started to slip in the public's opinion, and we have reached the endgame of having the worst face scans of all time.
Wait a minute.
And now we got Drewski in the game too. Alright, enough talking about that game that releases the same thing every year. We're here to discuss whether the NBA 2K cover curse is a real thing. The NBA 2K cover curse is a fan-created superstition based off the Madden curse. It is the idea that a player who appears on the NBA 2K cover will often experience horrific injuries or declines in performance shortly after. We're going to start our story talking about the first possible example of the curse, starting in 2008 to 2009 with NBA 2K9. Kevin Garnett was coming off of a historical season in which he averaged 18.8 points per game, 9.2 boards, and 3.4 assists, and he was the Defensive Player of the Year and was an NBA champion during the previous year.
Kevin, 11-time All-Star, League MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. Now it's time to add to your resume, NBA champion. How does that sound?
Anything's possible. Anything's possible!
If you weren't aware, this is actually what Jayson Tatum would base his embarrassing celebration on when he would win the championship later on. Anyways, we'll get to talking about that guy later. He would dip slightly in numbers this year, and the Celtics would go on to finish the season with a 62-20 record. But tragically, on February 19th, 2009, this happened. While initially the injury seemed minor, Kevin Garnett would never again return for the playoffs. This would create one of the best postseason series of all time versus the Bulls. If you know, you know. Where there would be 7 games and 7 OTs versus a young Derrick Rose-led team. Boston would end their postseason run as the defending champions in the second round, losing to a young Dwight Howard-led Magic team in 7. In the following 2009-2010 season, the NBA 2K10 cover athlete was none other than Kobe Bean Bryant. In his previous year, he averaged 26.8 points per game, 5.2 boards, 4.9 assists, and the Lakers won the 2009 title. In his cover athlete season, he would follow that with a dominant 27 points per game, 5.4 rebounds, and 5.0 assists per game, where the Lakers would go on to become the back-to-back champions. They would beat Boston in a brutal 7-game series, and fan sentiment was that Kobe cemented his career within the post-Shaq era, and it completely ended the debates. There's no curse here. As we follow up with NBA 2K11, this featured Michael Jordan as a cover athlete who was already long retired. The NBA 2K12 cover athletes would also follow in the same footsteps, with Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson being featured. For NBA 2K13, it would feature 3 athletes as well, in Derrick Rose, Blake Griffin, and Kevin Durant. Derrick Rose's conversation becomes a bit complicated, as his real curse moment ended up happening before his cover season, in which he tore his ACL in 2012 during his playoff run, and would not end up playing the entirety of the season. However, Blake Griffin's curse would start relatively quickly. With a previous year of 20.7 points per game, nearly 11 boards, and 3.2 assists, shortly after the cover announcement, he would actually end up tearing his meniscus during the Team USA preparations and would end up missing the Olympics. The Lob City Clippers would go on to win 56 games in the 2012-2013 season, but would subsequently throw a 2-0 lead to Memphis in the first round. He ended the season still averaging 18 points per game, 8.3 boards, and 3.7 assists per game, but this meniscus tear would be credited as the beginning of the end, as he would face many future injuries, ending up becoming labeled as injury-riddled by many fans. Knee, quad, foot, hand injuries, he ended up having them all, as he went from the face of the league to really just an unlucky what-if story. Kevin Durant was still excellent following his cover athlete debut, and we're actually going to get a chance to discuss him later on, as he appears in future titles. The one and only appeared in 2K14, the You know the story of this one. My GOAT would never fall off because of a silly curse. He was the best player in the world in 2013 with the Heat, averaging nearly 27 points per game, 8 boards, and 7.3 assists, and would still unanimously be considered the best player in the world in 2014, following it up with 27.1 points per game, 6.9 rebounds, and 6.3 assists. There is no real evidence of a personal curse here. However, the Heat would end up being dominated by the Spurs in the finals, losing in 5, essentially breaking up the Heatles dynasty. LeBron would be seriously stifled in this series by an emerging Kawhi Leonard, who would go on to win Finals MVP for his defense on LeBron. And weeks after the loss, LeBron would actually opt out of his contract and end up returning back in Cleveland. Team curse maybe, but not an individual one. For NBA 2K15, this cover athlete would make his second appearance on the list, Kevin Durant. In arguably one of the greatest examples of the curse, in the previous year, he would average 32 points per game, 7.4 rebounds, and 5.5 assists. He was an MVP and would subsequently drop to 25.4 points per game, 6.6 rebounds, and 4.1 assists, playing only 27 games. Durant would suffer a Jones fracture in his right foot right before the season, and OKC would end up missing the playoffs despite a monstrous Westbrook season. The Snake himself would probably credit this season as why he would choose to ruin the NBA in 2017. In NBA 2K16, the cover would feature Steph Curry, James Harden, and Anthony Day-to-Day Davis. I really wish they would stop doing 3 so I wouldn't have to explain them all, but anyways, Steph Curry would go on to arguably have the greatest season of all time, becoming the first ever unanimous MVP, and the Warriors would go 73-9 as he jumped up 6 points per game, averaging 30.1 points per game, 5.4 rebounds, and 6.7 assists. Besides losing to the GOAT in the finals on a historical 3-1 comeback, there isn't much of an argument for a curse here. The same would go for James Harden, as they would get spanked by the Warriors in the first round, and Harden would average similar numbers to the previous year. He awaited the arrival of Mike D'Antoni, whose analytical live and die by the 3-ball would revolutionize NBA offenses for years to come. Anthony Davis is the only obvious case here. He would average nearly identical numbers to his previous year, but the Pelicans would go from a solid second-round playoff team to only winning 30 games, as Davis dealt with shoulder and knee issues, starting his injury-prone portion of his career. In NBA 2K17, Paul George
game. Tie! Missed everything!
Was your NBA 2K cover athlete. He would go on to average nearly identical numbers to his previous year and was playing at a high level while still recovering from that huge leg fracture. The team would only go on to win 42 games though and would be swept in the first round, which really ended up marking the end of Paul George's time as a Pacer. For NBA 2K18, Kyrie Irving would be the cover athlete, and after a reporter would ask,
called him a great father. So what type of parental role has he played for you and your teammates, LeBron?
Oh, okay. So you, parental role. Honestly, I'm, he's. I don't know how to really answer that question. He's been a great leader for us. I have one father. That's my dad, Derrick Irving.
Who knew this is all it would take to break up a dynasty? Kyrie Irving would go and leave the Cleveland Cavaliers via trade. On opening night, the Celtics would lose Gordon Hayward to a horrific injury. This would then cause Jayson Tatum to step up, and he would average very similar numbers to his last year in Cleveland, with 24.4 points per game, 3.8 rebounds, and 5.1 assists per game. However, it was clear from as early as December that this marriage would never end up working out. Kyrie would end his 2017-2018 season with knee complications, and without him, this young Celtics team would beat Milwaukee in the first round in 7 and beat Philadelphia in 5. They would nearly make the finals, losing to LeBron and the Cavs in 7. This would kick off a dramatic next season, which may be the real source of the curse, as it would start off Kyrie's reputation as a problem child. Still the shiftiest man in the league though. For NBA 2K19, the Greek freak Giannis Antetokounmpo would be featured on the title, where he would squash the curse with a dominant 27.7 points per game, 12.5 rebounds, and 5.9 assists. This season is where he would earn MVP honors and take his team to win 60 games. The Bucks would do relatively well in the playoffs, making the Eastern Conference Finals, in which they would lose to Toronto in 6, despite taking a 2-0 lead. The Raptors figured out the strategy of walling out Giannis, which many thought would be the blueprint to stifling his dominant physical game, but he would later go on to answer those doubts by winning the championship in 2021. In NBA 2K20, Anthony Davis would make another appearance. He would garner his new Lakers uniform, where he would average similar numbers to the previous year of 26.1 points per game, 9.3 rebounds, and 3.2 assists, and would arguably be the number 1 option on the Lakers as they would go on to win the finals. Their path to the bubble championship would be dominant as they beat Portland in 5, Houston in 5, Denver in 5, and Miami in 6, and Davis would be considered as one of the best two-way threats in the entire league. You could argue that the curse narrative would take place later on in his career, as he would go through every injury possible. He would then be traded off of the Lakers to the Mavs in that historically awful Luka trade. This season, however, can only be described as dominant, as he would develop a solid three-point shot that even resulted in a historical buzzer beater.
It's rough Rondo, he puts it in. Here's Davis, 4-3 in the win. Oh, it's good! Anthony Davis has won it for the Lakers!
NBA 2K21 would have 3 different athletes, in Damian Lillard, Zion Williamson, and Kobe Bryant. We can go ahead and gloss over Kobe Bryant for this one, but Damian Lillard, while his numbers slightly dropped, was still very elite. He would go from 30 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, and 8 assists, to 28.8 points, 4.2 rebounds, and 7.5 assists. The Portland Trail Blazers would go on to lose their first game in the playoffs to Denver in 6, despite Jamal Murray not playing. Damian Lillard would display a legacy-changing Game 5 masterclass, in which he would break the record for most threes in a playoff game with 11 made three-pointers and drop 55 points and 10 dimes, while winning in a 147-140 double overtime win. He would score Portland's final 9 points in the first overtime, and would have 28 points in just the fourth quarter. It honestly felt like he couldn't miss. And next season, he would go on to actually experience an abdominal injury with surgery that would cause his prime in Portland to come to an end. But overall, you can't call this season cursed. Now Zion Williamson, however, don't even get me started as a Pelicans fan. His 2020-2021 season actually ended up being one of his most healthy years ever, and he would jump from 22.5 points per game, 6.3 rebounds, and 2.1 assists in only 24 games, to 27 points per game, 7.2 rebounds, and 3.7 assists in only 61 games. And he would actually end up making his first All-Star appearance. New Orleans would still go on to miss the playoffs, go figure, and he was injured by a fractured ring finger for the last 6 games of the season. While this season had no curse for him, what was held in his future would become infuriating, as it would involve a foot injury, conditioning criticism, missing seasons, and reoccurring soft tissue issues. He would go from one of the future faces of the league to one of the biggest what-if stories if he was just healthy for more than one season. This shade really has nothing to do with the curse. I'm just more venting that we all fall for the Zion got skinny narrative every single offseason. It makes me reminisce with the offseason with Ben Simmons, how we would watch him in practice, making 33s in a row. Following with NBA 2K22, Luka Doncic would nearly average a triple-double with 28.4 points per game, 9.1 rebounds, and 8.7 assists, which was slightly better than his previous season. Dallas would beat Utah in 6, upset Phoenix in 7 with their infamous
to play for the Buffaloes in college, a second-round pick,
and then lose to Golden State in the Western Finals in 5. Luka would be seen as a future MVP and playoff riser, as he would surely lead the Dallas Mavericks to 10 championships in the future, right guys? NBA 2K23, Devin Booker would be the cover athlete, where he would average 27.8 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, and 5.5 assists in 53 games, similar to his previous season. Booker would miss this time with a groin injury, but he was absolutely amazing when healthy. Phoenix would trade for Kevin Durant and beat the Clippers in 5 and lose to Denver in 6. The storyline was quite mixed, as they lost all of their bench depth in the Kevin Durant trade and had a very high-end talent, but didn't seem like enough to make a true postseason run. Their second straight second-round exit was deemed as embarrassing by fans and led to some criticism. A moderate addition to the cursed legacy. NBA 2K24 was once again Kobe Bryant, which there is no need to really cover for the third time. NBA 2K25 ended up being Jayson Tatum. After his cringe Kobe copying campaign and a title win in 2024,
Philip, we did it. We did it! Oh my God, we did it!
he would have a strong season with, I know you're tired of me saying it, but near identical numbers, with 26.8 points per game, 8.7 rebounds, and 6.0 assists. However, this would be one of the strongest cases of the curse. Boston would be the favorites to come out of the East by beating Orlando in 5, but then being stunned by the New York Knicks. Tatum in Game 4 would go on to score 42 points before rupturing his right Achilles. Boston would end up winning Game 5, but lose Game 6. While his career trajectory is looking still elite, he would not play a single game up until the final few games of the 2025-2026 season, and the Celtics would once again be shocked by the Philadelphia 76ers, where Tatum would not play in a crucial Game 7 at home. Finally, we get to the last cover athlete on this list, NBA 2K26, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Let me give you a highlight montage real quick.
Loose ball. Trouble for the Spurs. Gilgeous-Alexander.
We should have felt like in Phoenix all year about the ball. He is one of the most prolific drivers.
Alright, anyways, he would then end the season by going back-to-back with MVPs off a dominant OKC season where they would be the first seed, led by his 31.1 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, and 6.6 assists. No injuries or scandals, unfortunately, with the only curse being really his public sentiment. His stock is really in hell right now. Their expectation was back-to-back, but they would end up losing to the Spurs in 7 in the Western Conference Finals. But I'm sure you guys know that story. OKC would have to fight through some major injuries and having Chet Holmgren as a starter on their team. Overall, I would make the claim that a curse doesn't actually exist. The following year, the majority of players seem to match their numbers. And in a sport like basketball, the NBA body doesn't really hold up as well playing 82 games a year with long playoff runs. There were not many statistical fall-offs, and really lifting the Larry O'Brien trophy is no easy feat. You can make an argument about team narrative curses, but individual curses seem far between. I'm sure it doesn't help that older players are also featured as the cover athletes. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this, and possibly want me to go over the alternate cover athletes as well. Make sure you like and subscribe, as this video took a bit of research, and let me know if I did anything wrong. Thank you.